LifeLock, how can I help?
The IRS said I
filed my return,
but I haven't.
1 in 4 tax-paying Americans has paid the price of identity fraud.
What do I do?
My refund, though. I'm freaking out.
Don't worry, I can fix this.
LifeLock fixes identity theft guaranteed and gets your money back with up to $3 million in coverage.
I'm so relieved.
No problem. I'll be with you every step of the way.
1 in 4 was a fraud-paying American. Not anymore. Save up to 40% your first year. Visit LifeLock.com/podcast. Terms apply.
The Larry Kudlow Show. Entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
It's a big story in the Wall Street Journal, and we'll get our guest to comment on this. General Keane will comment on this, but Iran apparently fired 2 ballistic missiles at our base in Diego Garcia in the Indian Ocean, 2,500 miles away. And that is much longer, apparently, than people anticipated. They thought the limit was about 1,250 miles away. So there you go. It's just what I was talking about at the opening. Democrats may deny it, but they are an immediate threat. Anyway, it is with great pleasure we welcome back General Jack Keane, who's a retired 4-star general. He's the chairman of the Institute for the Study of War. He's a Fox News senior strategic analyst. He is a Presidential Medal of Freedom recipient. I was in the room when he got it. General Keane, sir, thank you, as always, for helping us on the radio and on the TV show, by the way.
Delighted to be here, Larry.
Yes, sir. This article in the Journal this morning, 2 Iranian ballistic missiles were fired at the Diego Garcia base, American base. Don't know if they hit. I think one did not hit, and one may have been intercepted. It's not clear from the article. But the bigger point is it's in the Indian Ocean, 2,500 miles away. They may have more missile power length than we thought. Another reason to be very concerned about Iran.
Yeah, well, I know sometimes people in the media and people that don't want the United States to intervene in anything can be a little tone deaf. But what precipitated this incursion that we're doing right now was the result after the 12-day war, Larry, when obviously the Iranians were set back quite significantly by the Israelis for most of that, and then we set back their nuclear program. But the Israelis set back their ballistic missile program, their drones, other capabilities, stripped them of their air defense systems, etc. But immediately after that, intelligence services began to realize that the Iranians were not going to change at all. If anything, they were more committed than ever. They began to build underground storage sites to project their ballistic missiles, and the numbers were accelerating. China was helping them, and they were increasing the range of the ballistic missiles and also attempting to develop an intercontinental ballistic missile, which obviously could reach the United States, much as North Korea has done, and that's another supporter of what the Iranians are doing. The Iranians know how to build rockets and missiles themselves, but the North Koreans are ahead of them in terms of the range of these weapon systems. And after all, these are their allies and partners. And the degree and zealotry that they had about that, plus they were attempting to recover their nuclear program, and the third thing they were doing is funding the proxies again. So they made there was no setback in their minds. If anything, they doubled down after the 12-day war to fully commit to return to where they were and extend the envelope. So, yes, the fact that they can shoot a ballistic missile 2,500 miles, I don't think is a surprise to our intelligence services, and that missile could obviously reach into Europe. And we know for a fact that they were attempting to develop intercontinental ballistic missiles, which would be obviously an existential threat to the United States if it involved a nuclear weapon. So, yeah, this is all real. This is taking place, and this is the reason why the president made the decision with Prime Minister Netanyahu to take away this offensive capability they have, strip them of it entirely, and why the Israelis are going one step further, Larry. and strip down the organizations that sustain the regime. The infamous IRGC, the Bazid militia, killing not only their leaders at the top, but hundreds of their enforcers that are on the streets in the various cities today, the Law Enforcement Command and the National Police infrastructure. So we are about this every single day, and that is another reminder of why there's complete justification for doing what is taking place in this combined force that Israel and the United States has put together.
Yes, sir. I'm reviewing the justification because we learned later this past week that the War Department is requesting another $200 billion, either for the war or the war, keep our military in tip-top shape, complete the mission in Iran, peace through strength. Hegseth talked about this, Secretary Hegseth, Pete Hegseth. And, you know, you're going to have a difficult fight on the money. Democrats are going to oppose this. And I was opening the show, sir, by reminding the narrative of Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner. When they came back from their last meeting with Iran, with the Iran people, you know, Witkoff had a chilling narrative. He said, look, this is 460 kilograms of 60% enriched uranium, which could be turned into 90% in 7 to 10 days, according to Witkoff and other analysts. That's how close Iran is to getting a nuclear bomb. And now, you know, reading about today in the paper or online about their delivery systems, the missile delivery systems are better and longer than we thought. I mean, this is going to be a blood and guts battle, which we must win. Republicans must win this. I mean, Democrats can join, but it's only Fetterman from Pennsylvania that seems to have any common sense. So there'll be a reconciliation bill, I presume. That'd be my economic tactic, because that's just 50 votes plus the vice president. But all of this, you know, I guess what I'm saying, General, is let's not forget. Your points just made. Let's not forget about the nuclear threat. Let's not forget about the terrorism threat. Let's not forget about the missile threat. Let's not forget any of it for the last 47 years, making war against the United States and Israel and civilized people. Let's not forget that, because Democrats are going to try to block that. I hate to make this partisan, but what we know, unfortunately, the party over there has changed. So it's the GOP carrying the ball. But these are, we're going to have to. These arguments are crucial. We're going to have to go through it all over again, because the military's got to have what it needs. Right? In my view, give them what they want, General.
Yeah. Well, two thoughts on what you just said. After the 12-day war, and they recognized the path that Iran was on, which was the complete recovery, complete commitment to the return to their ideology. And even though we went out there and tried to negotiate with them, I think the president, in his back of his mind, knew that was a fruitless effort, but he was willing to try it anyway. And what these two leaders came to the conclusion is that this regime is not going to change.
Right.
Even when we punished them in that 12-day war and took their nuclear enterprise down and set it back, they went right back to where they were, fully committed to it. And that was really the catalyst, the fact that the regime is diabolical in its intent. They want to take control of the Middle East. They want to dominate and control it. They want to drive the United States out of there in terms of its influence. These are the objectives they've had for 47 years. And they want to destroy the state of Israel. And by destroy the state of Israel, what they mean by that is make it such a volatile, dynamic situation from a security perspective that the small number of Jews that live in Israel, I mean, it's obviously less than 10 million, somewhere around 8 million, don't want to live there anymore because the risk is too high for their children and their grandchildren. So they have been about this, and those two national leaders came together and said, sooner rather than later, there's no sense waiting for them to recover and be able to do more damage to us when we attack them. Their retaliation capability will be greater. So there was a sense of urgency that we need to do something now, not just in terms of retaliation against what would happen in the Middle East region, but retaliation and prevent them from doing damage out of the region into Europe and into the United States proper itself. And anybody looking at the facts in this can see, yes, is this a war of choice? You betcha it is. But the facts speak for themselves as to why the justification on the funding thing, so our audience understands. There is no contingency fund in the budget in the event we have to go to war or in the event we have to do some kind of a specialized operation. So we're paying for this out of money that's obviously allocated for other things. And so what the Pentagon is going back to is saying this is what it's costing us, and we want to be reimbursed for this because we're taking it out of operational funds or we're taking it out of potential procurement funds to be able to expend it on this. And that, of course, is a reasonable request given what's happening here. But you're absolutely right. This will come down to a political partisan fight over something that should be blatantly obvious and be supported by the overwhelming members of the House and the Senate. But it likely will be a partisan battle, and that's unfortunate.
Yes, it is. I don't know if you saw, it was a Democrat, no Trump supporter, but I know him, David Boies. He's a famous defense lawyer. David Boies wrote a great piece in the Wall Street Journal, I guess 2 Fridays ago, why there shouldn't be partisanship in this war. And although he devoutly hopes that President Trump and his choice will lose, and he wants a Democrat to win in the 2028 election. Nonetheless, David Boies walks through the same points that you just walked through regarding the need to go after Iran on the nuclear issue and on the terrorism issue and so forth and so on. So there was a time in America when we had, foreign policy stopped at the water's edge. War support, always. But those days are gone now. Actually, when I worked for Reagan, I watched a lot of Democrats support Reagan in his fight against communism, but this is a different time, unfortunately, as you point out. I'm just saying, as a matter of tactics, I don't want to bring you in on this, but I worked as deputy budget director for Reagan, and I worked for I was an NEC director for Mr. Trump 40 years later. Reconciliation's the best way to do this because it only requires 50 floor votes plus the vice president. And you're not going to get 60 votes to pass this additional war appropriation, but we must pass the appropriation. We must get this through in the middle of this war. And we're going to hear a lot of phony, baloney arguments against it, but we must get it done. General Keane, I guess 1 or 2 Marine Expeditionary Forces heading for the Persian Gulf. Can you fill in some blanks on that one?
Yeah, that's true. And I think there are plenty of options, for these forces when they arrive. That's for sure. I think, clearly the adversary has a vote in any war. And what Iran has been able to do with very few resources, I mean, we obviously have taken their Navy away from them, except for some small boats. We've taken their Air Force, which wasn't much, all their air defense systems, the overwhelming majority of their ballistic missiles and drones. But still, with the threat of imposing their will in the Gulf, I think they've hit somewhere in the neighborhood of 15-plus ships over the past few weeks. Didn't necessarily destroy those ships, but set them on fire. And they're jamming their GPS systems, their navigation systems, and also their communication systems. So the merchant community the seagoing merchant community has decided, because of this potential threat, not to go through the Gulf, as we've all been watching now. And we cannot let that stand, quite frankly, because that is something they've always wanted to achieve, Larry, is being able to control the distribution of oil through the Gulf and through the Straits of Hormuz. They tried to do that a couple of times before. We're never able to succeed at it. During Reagan administration, who you were working for in '88, they tried to do it, and we attacked their oil platforms economically and then attack them militarily in terms of their small boats and frigates and mine layers. And the problem went away. So we have to address this. There's no doubt about that. We're stripping away, certainly, all of their offensive capability, but they don't need much to deal with this. I mean, some small boats, that's a threat. The other one are some drones. That's a threat. So they don't need thousands of drones to do this. And then the potential to lay some mines. That's a threat. So despite we're taking everything else away from them, that threat still remains. So I think we have to address it, and there's a number of things and options on the table, and the Marines would contribute to that as others may contribute to it. But some of the things that we can do and likely are under consideration, one would be stop all the Iranian ships that are going through the Gulf. When they get down further into the Gulf, into the Arabian Sea, grab those ships, quarantine them, and take control of that oil. In other words, we stop them from going through the straits so that they would open it up for others going through the straits. It's a bargaining chip. Number two, we have to take control of the Persian Gulf and the Straits of Hormuz militarily, and we're on our way to doing that. We have to dominate it and control it, and that is going to be a must. And then I think number three, likely under consideration, has been talked about publicly, is Karg Island, which represents 90% of the distribution of oil that comes out of the Iranian oil fields. So we could seize that. Marines obviously could do something like that. We could blockade it. And I don't think we would want to destroy it, but we would use it as leverage towards the end of this thing. Now we own completely their economic viability. So those are things that are under consideration, certainly. One of them has already taken place, and that is to achieve maritime dominance of the Gulf and the Straits of Hormuz so that ships can be escorted through that. That's a work in progress. The other two that I mentioned, stopping Iranian shipping completely of oil, and also what to do about Karg Island, are likely options that are under consideration. So, but we have to return to normalcy and the flow of oil, that, through the Gulf and through, the Straits of Hormuz. And it's likely going to take force to be able to do that.
Well, we're about the halfway mark. President's goal was 4 to 6 weeks, not in cement, but that was his goal. We're through week 3, so I'm calling that the halfway mark. I'd say we just have a minute here left before we hit a breaks, General. But I would say we're in awfully good shape for the halfway mark. And when the president says we consider winding down our great military effort in the Middle East, I mean, I think he's just saying we've got other things to do. We're not going to leave, cut and run. But we're in pretty good shape on this war, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, very good shape. I mean, we had obviously a very detailed plan, and we've been able to achieve those details, and we're continuing to make progress. I think a halfway mark for the Israelis for sure. We're probably a little bit further along than that. The Israelis have taken on a greater burden than what we're taking on. They're helping with the destruction of all offensive capabilities, but they're also taking on the added burden of taking down all the organizations that sustain the regime.
I love that. I just love that. That is just so wonderful what Israel is doing.
The Larry Kudlow Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network.